get on with getting on, shall we? Because I'm joined now by one of my favourites, the nation's favourite babber. He's Gert Lush. It's James Price, former Conservative government advisor. Good morning, James.
I'm not sure I've ever had a more positive introduction, so thank you for putting a spring in my step.
There you go. You're looking very tanned. Are you still in Sardinia? Are you back? You look like...
I'm back, but I'm no longer milk bottle coloured.
I don't think you're British anymore. I mean, what's happened to you? It's like, I feel like I'm speaking to someone from Indonesia. You look glorious. Right, now, talking about glorious, not so glorious for Sir Keir Starmer because he's had to cave into this big backbench revolt. Really interesting approach by Starmer, where he was at that NATO conference, of course, and asked about people saying they're not going to vote through his welfare cuts bill, and he just called it noising off. Noising off, he said, and then threatened to do things like this could be a confidence vote in the government. If you don't back Starmer on this, oh, you might have the whip removed, which is, of course, what he did to the rebels within the first few weeks of being in office. And they're still defying him, aren't they? Has he lost his grip, do you think, when it comes to managing his own party?
I'm not sure he ever had much of a grip. You know, we have to remind people that the Labour Party won by default because of the excessive failures of my old party, unfortunately, having done quite well for a while, you know, Boris and then Liz and Rishi and all the rest of it. And so I don't think the Labour Party got anything like the kind of scrutiny that it should have had. Starmer didn't have anything like the kind of scrutiny that he should have had. And they didn't have any actual plan for getting into government. And that's why we've seen in the almost year so far, it's been such a catastrophe. Look, I am one of the most partisan people going. I suspect, Alex, you are as well. I don't think either of us thought they were going to be this bad, this fast, and for this long and in this many ways. You've got one sensible person, this chap called Morgan McSweeney, who is Starmer's chief of staff now.
And that's the one they want to get rid of, isn't it, all of these rebels?
Right. Exactly right. It's absolutely extraordinary. Now, this is the guy who actually does have a lot of government polling that's been commissioned. So he knows that the general public, including the many sensible and smart listeners and viewers of this programme right now, know how crackers it is that we give out huge amounts of welfare payments to people who don't deserve it, and that we also now do an increasing amount for people who, whilst claiming they have mental health problems, would actually would benefit a lot more from going and getting a job. As Ronald Reagan said, the best welfare programme in the world is the dignity of having a job. So McSweeney knows all of this stuff. He also presumably knows that the £5 billion by 2030 that this plan was supposed to save is complete chicken feed. It might sound like a lot to all of us personally, but in the scheme of the 1.3 trillion pound budget, it's nothing at all, and it's less than half of what we could save if we simply stopped spending money on benefits for foreigners here. And yet, as you say, this is the guy that these rebels want to get rid of. It's almost like looking like a death wish for the Labour Party.
I mean, what is left of this so-called bill now? Because it seems to me that, first of all, there was this amendment designed to tank the whole thing, and various limbs and bits and bobs have been cut off. It's sort of cut down to the quick now. Is there anything left of this rubbleized proposal, or is it just now at this point dead?
Yeah, not a lot that I can see. I said just now that they didn't do any planning and preparation before coming into government, and I think this is part of it. It's such thin gruel across their entire legislative agenda. All we've seen so far is they want to kill babies almost at full term and 9 months in the womb. They want to kill off granny. They want to give away our territory. They want to continue having energy be the most expensive in any country in the world. They want to continue us having low growth. And they've also gone and looked at the school system that has been the best in the West, thanks to the Conservatives, and say they want to destroy that as well. So is it any surprise that in this bill there's nothing smart or decent in there? You know, this is looking like a feature, not a bug, of Labour's governing time. The bit that really scares me, of course, is that they must realise, even some of the morons, of which there are many there, that they're not going to get a second term. Certainly not at this rate.
Well, that's the problem. You kind of worry what they're going to do. You know, they're now going to be government on steroids. How much can we get away with in the next 4 years? Now, remember, you've got to add to your litany of everything they've been getting wrong, which was a wonderful list indeed. I've never seen such a sort of horrific inventory of failure. You've got to add to this now, this proposal that instead of saying to France, you've got to take back people who are entering our country illegally. We don't want these migrants just because they're all queuing up in Calais to come here. You're supposed to be defending your own territory and stopping this illicit trafficking of human beings. We're now saying to them, oh, do you want to give us some, like, just for free? You know, hand them over. One in, one out. We'll send one back who's crossed the channel, but we'll take somebody else instead. said. What is the point of that?
It's absolutely astonishing, isn't it? Net zero reductions of asylum seekers. What is the point, as you say? Without getting a proper deterrent in place, aka the Rwanda scheme that the last government was trying to do, and then Rishi called an election before it actually started to work, because it would have worked, and he might have run the risk of staying on as Prime Minister, which I don't think Sunak wanted to do. Without anything like that as a deterrent, we're not going to fix this problem. And without fixing the kind of legal issues around this, the fact that this guy, Lord Hermer, who's one of Starmer's best mates, and he made him the Attorney General, without him changing the kind of legal advice or us changing the law to stop these sorts of boats, none of these silly little plans with France or anything else is going to make a blind bit of difference. And the French, by the way, have a deterrent. They're building a maximum security prison in the deepest jungles in a bit of French territory that's still in South America to send all the terrorists and scumbags off to. We need to resurrect something like that, whether it's in Rwanda, whether it's an Ascension Island or in the middle of nowhere. That's what we need, because frankly, whether it's the asylum seekers, the bogus asylum seekers who are almost exclusively fighting age men coming over here, or whether it's any of the other wrong-uns that we've got in this country, I don't know about you, I am so tired of having to live around these people. I want them deported, I want them arrested, and I want us to go back to having a nice, calm, civilized society again.
Right, I just want to have a country, and having a country means you have borders, right? I mean, otherwise you don't exist as a country if any old character can come in from somewhere and then suddenly go, I live here now. I mean, absolutely mad that they're taking money off disabled people, basically. And yes, I agree that the welfare reforms need to happen. It's ridiculous how many people, particularly in the 18 to 25 demographic, are sitting at home, not working, not contributing to the economy and getting handouts because, I don't know, they got anxiety. Don't we all? Join the queue. But, instead of like actually thinking, what can we do for the British people? They're saying, oh, welcome. Well done for breaking in. Here's a hotel room and a mobile phone for you. While you're at it, would you like some tickets to the football and a driving lesson or two? It is enraging. But it seems to me that, Starmer knows he's in trouble. He knows his levels of unpopularity, both outside of his party and inside the party. And when he seems to have his back against the wall, he is a man who makes extraordinarily sort of Leninist or Stalinist manoeuvres, doesn't he? As soon as he feels a little bit under threat or wants to grasp control of a situation. And here he goes now, apparently gagging civil servants to stop them speaking in public, saying if they're going to be doing any talking whatsoever outside the corridors of power, they must have their comments vetted in advance. Now, I have some sympathy with this. You don't want rogue Whitehall know-it-alls going around slagging off the government. I mean, we've seen plenty of people try and do that in times past. But he really does sort of go for sort of all-out censorship, doesn't he, Starmer? He's not, he's not shy about blocking free speech.
No, of course not. Because free speech would mean people being able to tell him and his socialist cronies what a bunch of terrible policies and ideas they've got and how bad a job they're doing, and he doesn't want to hear that. As you say, I've got some sympathy with this idea that civil servants shouldn't be allowed to just kind of mouth off and go rogue on these sorts of things. The problem that we've got, and you and I have discussed this many, many times on this great show already, is that at the moment, the civil servants are the people who are actually running the country, not the politicians. The politicians end up being basically just the spokesman for the various departments. They're given the lines to read out by the civil servants, have been written by the civil servants, and they've just got to go out there and say it. And if anything goes wrong, they're also the fall guy. That's the problem we've got. The government is not really the government. And this change is just kind of solidifying that even more, because it might mean that ministers, the MPs themselves, who are in charge, that's supposed to be in charge of these departments, are going to spend more time just doing the announcements and the media-facing bit, and even less time trying to get to grips with what the department is doing, trying to scrutinize it, trying to set a leadership tone and all these sorts of things. It's absolutely bonkers that we're just going to give away even more power and authority to the civil servants for even less transparency and accountability. Do we think that would work in a business? Do you think that works in your normal life?
Well, it's funny you talk about that particular dichotomy between what is good for the goose is not necessarily the same for the gander, because Angela Rayner's civil servants have launched an indefinite work to rule campaign after being told they can't work from home. They're basically protesting the fact that they're not allowed to, I don't know, run the government and manage the country from the comfort of their slanket on a summer's day. Because while she's saying you've got to get back into the office and you can't have all these flexible, we're just going to go to a beach in the Bahamas with our laptops, the Employment Rights Bill does quite the opposite when it comes to what she thinks workers should be entitled to, which is exactly that. If you need to work from home, so be it. I mean, can we just get something straight here, Raina? Nobody should be working from home. COVID is over.
Well, I don't think that it's for the government to tell private businesses or individuals how they should do anything. Eagle-eyed people will see that I'm talking to you from my home today because the offices that I work in, you've got different things to do sometimes, and Friday is a good day to be left alone from employees, so I can actually get some other normal day.
So you can moonlight with us, huh?
Well, exactly, but I'm not working for the government, and I think there is a big responsibility when it's taxpayers who are paying civil servant salaries, that especially senior civil servants need to be in the office so that they're on hand to help the minister of the day at the drop of a hat, and to teach and educate and train up and set an example for the next generations of civil servants coming through. That shouldn't be a controversial thing. And I've got to say, when I was a government advisor, we faced the same problem, and I've never ever in my life seen civil servants so animated as they were in late 2021, early 2022, when we were starting to require them to come back into the office full time after COVID. And some of the messages that they would send the permanent secretaries of the departments: you're ruining my life, you're betraying us, I can't believe you're doing this to us, all for the requirement of making people come back into an office.
To me, look, if people want to work from home and businesses say that's fine, it will actually save us on office costs, so be it. But to me, it is indicative of something that's happened psychologically to us as a nation since COVID, which is this sort of lackadaisical, work shy, don't want to mix, don't want to leave the house, really sort of ambivalent about work. And, I think it sort of contributes to the reason why, as a nation, with a only developed economy that hasn't actually sorted out worklessness since COVID-19. Everybody else has got people back in work, and we've just got a load of people sitting there on benefits. As we were discussing in terms of the welfare reform, yes, people who need state support should absolutely be entitled to get it. But I think there must be so many people out there gaming the system. We've heard of those people who have their channels on TikTok where they say, you've got to fill out this form, these are the exact answers to give to these questions verbatim. If you do that, you then get all your cash money. People actually there advising others how to game the system. Then all those Albanian gangs who are sort of, making all of these false claims from the comfort of wherever in the Balkans, costing us millions of pounds so they can build their mansions back at home. I mean, clearly welfare reform is much needed. What are we gonna do about Starmer? We still got 4 years of him, haven't we?
Well, maybe. It's extraordinary that there are rumblings already that this rebellion could lead to the end of Starmer. I was speaking to someone who's familiar with a lot of focus groups that are happening up and down the country, and I heard that you can't actually mention Starmer in these focus groups anymore because people will become so distracted by their fury and hatred of him and what he's doing to the country that you can't actually get any information out of them on any other topic. And I think the same is probably true of a few other members of that cabinet, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband and Bridget Phillips and David Lammy, all these people, these clowns, pick your pick.
So therefore, if Starmer's toppled, if these backbenchers manage to go after the king and dethrone him, who on earth's going to take his place? They're not exactly a sort of bunch of brilliants, are they?
No, quite. Well, you've got Wes Streeting, the health secretary, who is the best of the bunch, I think. He did quite a brave thing of abolishing NHS England, the Quango, and taking the responsibility for the NHS's success on his own shoulders, which is exactly how it should be. But the poor guy's got a tiny majority because all the Gaza independent Muslim voters in his seat hate him and will unseat him at the next election because of the way their demographics are going. And that's true for Shabana Mahmood as well, who's the Justice Secretary, who again actually seems to be one of the soundest and smartest people. She'll lose her seat. Rayner will lose her seat. Jess Phillips and a bunch of others will lose their seats because of demographic trends as well. And then you've got Rachel Reeves, who lied about her CV, is still actually the only person, I think, in that whole cabinet with any private sector experience whatsoever. So if she goes, goodness me knows who on earth we're going to have in the Treasury. It's terrifying.
Oh, but private sector experience, we all know about that, don't we? James, thank you ever so much. And thank you for joining us working from home. moonlighting with talk. We appreciate that. Everyone who works from home but tunes into this show is more than entitled to work from home. In fact, you're doing a great thing. You're of great service to the nation, wising up and formulating your opinions on a Friday morning with me. That's going to get you well versed for all of those dinner parties you won't be attending this weekend, but you will win the arguments at the bar down the Dog and Duck.